What's up guys, I'm Rich from Spray Black Studios, and today I'm going to go through my 5 favourite tips for prolonging the life of your brushes. Brush care is something that has often been neglected by miniature painters the world over, but it is something that if done right can improve your painting and also save you a lot of money in the long run. Miniature painting brushes generally are unfortunately quite easy to ruin, and in the cases of the high-end expensive Winsor & Newtons, Artis Opus or Broken Toad sable brushes, they're pretty expensive to replace as well. So today I'm going to go through 5 tips just to help you prolong the life of those brushes and to save you some money. So my first tip is to avoid getting any paint in the ferrule of the brush. Not to be confused with a certain American comedy actor, the ferrule is the metal banding around the end of the brush where your bristles are located. Inside the ferrule is the glue that holds those bristles in place and holds them together. By getting paint into this, it can cause the bristles to separate or the glue itself to break down, causing the bristles to deform and to separate, which really isn't good when you want to keep a nice tidy point for your detail work. To prevent this, I recommend when putting paint on the brush to only use the last 50% of the length of the bristles. This will not only help prevent the paint from accidentally going into the ferrule, but it will also help reduce the chances of the paint wicking down the length of the bristles into the ferrule itself. To help with this, I also recommend using a cheaper, possibly synthetic brush, should you ever need to remove paint from a paint pot, or alternatively, just use dropper bottles. Tip number 2 is actually about your brush control. Avoiding using any stabbing or pushing motions with the brushes when you're using them helps protect those very delicate bristles and helps to prevent them from being broken. Using pushing motions can cause those very delicate bristles to bend, to break or to deform. It also causes them to separate, which makes it much easier for the paint to get back into that ferrule, which, as we've mentioned earlier, is a big no-no. To avoid this, make sure that you're using pulling or dragging motions with your brush anytime you're using it. You'll find that not only will this prolong the life of your brush, but it'll probably help you with your brush control as well. Now another place where people often go wrong is actually in the storage of their brushes. A lot of people see pictures or videos of watercolour artists storing their brushes in a jam jar with the bristles facing up. But storing brushes in this manner can cause any residual paint or moisture to build up in the ferrule of the brush, causing the glue and the bristles to break down. By instead storing the brushes horizontally, you can allow that moisture to evaporate off naturally or to drip off the side or the end of the brush. You'll also notice that many brushes come with small plastic protectors for the bristles. Make sure that you keep hold of these and you do not lose these, because these can protect the bristles when being stored and prevent them from being accidentally damaged. Now this is a tip that actually took me a little while to learn. When you've been cleaning your brush in your water pot for a little while, you'll notice that the water itself will go nice and murky. This is because every time you clean that brush in the water, you are dissolving the paint pigment that is being held on the brush into the water itself. This, as you keep going, will only get worse and worse until the water is carrying a lot of paint pigment, which is then getting into your brush because it's not being cleaned properly. By regularly changing the water in the paint pot, you can ensure that the brush is actually being cleaned properly. This is especially important when dealing with any paints such as metallics or ones like those found in Citadel's technical range. These paints all hold slightly different pigments, so the metallics will have the metal flake, which if not cleaned off properly will start appearing in your other paints, and if you're doing nice smooth blends you don't want those little mica flakes appearing. Paints such as the technical paints also hold a slightly different pigment to them, which is quite large and quite thick. These paints, if not cleaned out of your brushes properly, can damage the bristles and, as mentioned, can cause them to deform and to separate. So tip number 5, and probably the most important one, is proper brush cleaning. For this, you'll need a few things: brush soap, airbrush cleaner, lukewarm water, and kitchen roll. If you're cleaning a brush that is in regular use and you follow the above points, then you can get away with generally just cleaning the brush with soap and water. First, give the brush a spin around in the water to wet the brush and remove any pigment from the bristles. Again, like painting, ensure that you avoid any stabbing motions so as not to damage the bristles. Having done that, you then need to grab out your brush soap and in pulling and rolling motions run it across the surface of the soap. Having built up a bit of a lather on the brush, then using the palm of your hand, run the brush in various directions to work the soap into the bristles. Whilst you do need to separate the bristles somewhat to work the soap into them, make sure that you again avoid any pushing motions wherever possible. Once you've done this, then form up the point of the brush using a crease in your hand and then leave the brush to rest horizontally for about 20 to 30 minutes. To finish off, now give the brush a little rinse again in the clean water and then leave it to dry naturally before packing it away. If the bristles of your brush are full of dried up paint like this one, then it's not going to be quite so easy, and this is where the airbrush cleaner will come into play. To clean a brush that's full of dried paint, we first need to break up all the dried up pigment within the bristles. Putting some of the airbrush cleaner into a small container, we need to work the brush around in the liquid, making sure to avoid the temptation to jab or stab the brush against the bottom of the container. With the kitchen roll handy, wipe down the brush regularly and then return to the airbrush cleaner until the brush no longer contains any paint. In the case of this brush, it is that bad that it is going to take me quite a few attempts to really clear all the paint out of these bristles. It can also be particularly handy to have another pot of clean water here, particularly if the brush is in a really bad state like this one. Once you've done these steps, you can then continue by doing the steps that I've already mentioned. These are very important after using airbrush cleaner as it's pretty aggressive and unless cleaned off thoroughly can actually damage the bristles if left. Now you'll notice this brush is not exactly perfect, but we've recovered a brush that was barely usable to one that will actually make a passable dry brush. So there we go guys, there's my 5 tips for keeping your brushes in tip-top shape. Now as I've mentioned before, one of the things that I feel has really improved my painting was by upgrading from the basic synthetic Citadel brushes up to my nice expensive Artist Opus and Broken Toad brushes that I'm using currently. Using these brushes does however come with one downside, and that's the price tag. High quality sable brushes do unfortunately tend to run you probably more than twice what you would be paying for a synthetic ones, much like the Citadel that I was using. When using these brushes, it is imperative that you take the steps to look after them properly, because this will extend the life of those brushes considerably and save you a lot of money in the long run. I also want to take this chance to say thank you to all of those that have subscribed to the channel and have been watching my videos over the last few months. When I started up this channel back in July, I never envisaged that I would be at this point as I am, just hitting 500 subscribers just before Christmas. Now whilst I am incredibly happy with how the channel has gone, I am going to be making a few changes into the new year. You may have noticed my new intro reel that I ran at the start of this video, but this is just the start of the changes. Going forward, I will be changing my structure ever so slightly, and I will be dropping to just doing a fortnightly video on the weekend. But I'm also going to be bringing in a new series called Tutorial Tuesdays, where I will be doing a short form video, just teaching a particular element of painting or hobby, and leaving my weekend videos for any painting challenges or any larger projects that I may take on. Hopefully this will give you even more content than I'm currently producing, but will also give me the opportunity to spend a little bit more time on those longer videos to put up the production quality where I know that I can get it, and hopefully make it a bit more entertaining for your viewing pleasure. So make sure you hit that subscribe button down below so you don't miss out on this upcoming content. And if you've enjoyed this video, then please feel free to give it a like or drop a comment down below. And please share it around if you've got any friends that you feel may need to look after their brushes just a little bit better. And as always guys, if all else fails, spray it black and start again.